Hi, my name's Amy. I'm on the board of directors of CODA UK and Ireland, and I'm a teacher. And I'm here to give you my top 5 tips on how to work with CODA children in your classroom or their deaf parents. I'm a teacher as well, and I've taught deaf children, hearing children, and CODA children. So I know communication can be a massive struggle, and it is massively important to building good relationships with the parents and therefore helping the children in your class. Hopefully this will help to communicate with the deaf parents and make sure the CODA feels supported in your class. I will also post a video of some basic school signs so that if you're ever in a situation where there isn't an interpreter available, and maybe if you just, meeting the parents at the school gate, you can convey some basic sign language. So tip number 1. Deaf people have really diverse needs. So some deaf parents you might meet might be able to lip read if you speak really slowly and clearly. You don't need to do this. That's fine. You just speak slowly, clearly. Other deaf parents may require communication through BSL, British Sign Language. For these parents, wherever possible, to ensure really good, clear communication, try to book an interpreter. That's really important. For instance, on Parents' Evening, that's all really important information that a parent has a right to know. So go see your senior leadership, see if you can book an interpreter for that appointment. Make sure the deaf person gets priority time so that they can see you when the interpreter is there, because otherwise you will have to use the child themselves as an interpreter. And if I was the child, I would probably say, even though you might say they're struggling at maths, they might say they're doing amazing at maths. And who are you to know, because you might not know sign language. Interpreters can be booked through NRCPD online, and these interpreters should also be used wherever possible for any events. So for example, school plays. My parents, for instance, never had access to interpreter for any of my performances, so sort of just stood there watching a bunch of children moving their mouths for an hour and a half, which wasn't that enjoyable. So wherever possible, if you can involve parents in the school community, that would be really important. Also, sitting them in a position near the front so that if they do have an interpreter, they can see them. If not, if they are someone who doesn't use BSL and they prefer to lip read, they are closer so they can lip read. So I've heard from many parents that we talked to through our Facebook page that one of the things they really valued was having a written transcript of what was happening. So even if they didn't have an interpreter, they could at least follow using the script what was happening. So that would also be really useful. Tip number 2. Often there's a problem or an incident in school and teachers will need to phone home on a last minute basis. Maybe there's an incident, maybe someone's been naughty, maybe you want to give some positive feedback. Many deaf people won't be able to confidently access phone calls. My mum couldn't at all. My dad can, but will miss a lot of the information. So many parents may prefer to get emails or texts to make sure that they are in the loop and can participate. There's also FaceTime. Talk to your school about the options, but also make sure you talk to the parents themselves about the options they may prefer to get a phone call, especially if it's an emergency situation. But it might be worth having a Skype or a FaceTime on record in case there's an emergency and they cannot access phone calls. You also may want to look at the video that we're going to upload about basic BSL linked to school, so subject words and improve, not very confident, things like that are specifically words you will need for talking about school. But you also might want to set up a home school book. Many parents, if you can't sign, might find it easier just to have pen and paper communication written down, and when you see them you can go, ooh, Peggy Sue was really good in school today, and then they can write down back. So you might want to, if you don't have time at the end of the school day, I know it can be busy, you might just want to have a homeschool book set up already so you can write down when you get a free minute and then give it to them. But yes, talk to the parent about how they would prefer to be contacted. Tip number 3. Some CODAs can feel different or can be bullied because their parents are deaf. Other children are young and don't understand and might not be very deaf aware. Be mindful of this, keep an eye out for it. And perhaps if you're a teacher, you could take advantage of things like Deaf Awareness Week, BSL Recognition Day, and other special weeks and days where it's possible to celebrate deaf culture. There's loads of information about it on Twinkle, there's PowerPoints you can download, you can find videos of BSL, teach your children BSL. It'll make a real big difference to the CODA to feel like their culture is being celebrated. So then the CODA in your class may want to be involved in this or not, so maybe take them to the side, have a little chat about them. Do they want to help you teach them, help teach their class BSL? Would they like to do something in particular, or would they rather not be that involved? Because they might find it quite embarrassing if they've been bullied about it in the past. So it's good to communicate with them about that, let them know it's coming up. Tip number 4. Remember, many parents view English as a second language if they are deaf, if they use BSL. Therefore, the child might need additional support to complete homework. For instance, if the parents don't speak or use phonics, they might find it really hard to help the child complete phonics homework. They never used those sounds before. Some deaf people have a slightly lower reading level. For instance, when I got to about 9 and 10, my parents could no longer help me with reading. So be mindful of that. If, don't tell your child off, discipline them for not reading with their parents if their parents can't read, and they might need additional support within the school for that. Tip number 5. CODAs experience a bilingual and bicultural brain. So that means there's 2 languages and 2 cultures. This can mean that some CODAs may show traits of deaf culture. For instance, they might tap others to get their attention, or they might bang on the table because their deaf parents feel the vibrations or need a tap because they can't just go, "Mom." This is not naughty behavior, this is just how they've learned to communicate at home. So try not to discipline a child for banging on the table, because that's just what they know, and they just might need to be taught that's what you do at home. That's fine, that's great, it's part of your culture. But in school, we don't do that. Just because otherwise it might distract other children from their learning. They also might feel the need to have eye contact, communicate with other children, because obviously eye contact is so crucial in sign language. This is very normal, and this is completely okay. Just reinforce that they don't need it necessarily in schools. CODAs might also benefit from subtitles in movies, because that's what they get at home. Also, in sign language, we have some more tactful phrasing, which means that CODAs that might not translate so well into English, which might come off as the CODA being very blunt or direct. This is, again, quite normal, and that's just the way sign language and its grammar works. They also might show to seem more mature than others their own age, because they might be taking on greater levels of responsibility at home. For instance, they might be interpreting a lot. They might have to take phone calls about bank issues for their parents from the age of about 7 or 8. They might have to advocate for their parents. They might see their parents discriminated upon on a regular basis. So it might be worth keeping that into consideration as well, that encouraging the children to do team building activities and do teamwork and not always be the one that takes on additional responsibility, and remind them they don't need to be very independent and very mature. They are still a child, and school is the best place to support them with this. CODAs may also seem, during the early years and young stages of school, like they have linguistic delays or language delays. This may not be because they actually have language delays. It may just be at home they've always used BSL, and they've arrived in school and they're acquiring a new language in a similar way to how children with English as an additional language, they may shoot up very quickly. So don't assume because they've arrived with a language delay that they will always have a language delay. Some CODAs may be very proud of the fact that they have deaf parents. Some may be very embarrassed, particularly if they're being bullied in school, and may not want to be treated as a spokesperson for deafness and disability issues. If you want more deaf awareness, there are courses available led by deaf people. Those are the best ones to get. So potentially recommend your head teacher to book that in for one of the training days, or ask if you can be sent on deaf awareness training, because this might be more useful. And the CODAs themselves might benefit from attending CODA camp or CODA workshops to meet other children like them. So have a look at our site for more information, or pass on our details, CODA UK and Ireland, the organisation, to the parents. And the child will benefit from meeting other children who have deaf parents and seeing that they're not alone or different. Actually, there are a lot of other children, a lot of them get bullied or asked stupid questions about having deaf parents, because many hearing people aren't very aware, and they will be the first deaf people they might have met in their life. So it definitely is beneficial for other CODAs to meet other CODAs, to start to understand their own identity and their place within the 2 different worlds. So I hope this video helped, and if you want to learn some specific school-specific signs, check out our other video. And if you have any further questions about anything raised in this video, let us know at CODA UK and Ireland. You can contact us at info@codaukandIreland.co.uk, or you can message us on our Facebook, which is just CODA UK and Ireland. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.